Hello Admirals and welcome back to my channel where I talk to you about Battlefleet Gothic, the spaceship game set in the Warhammer 40,000 universe. So I put a poll up on my channel, Eldar won, sorry Orks fans, but I was feeling generous because it is Christmas, so I thought, you know what, to close out the 4 original fleets from the original game, I thought I'd release the Ork starter fleet list as well video. So I'm going to be providing you a fleet list, 1500 points, based on the original Blue Book and Armada book for the Orks. I'll just mention that the Orks in 2010 got the Orks Clans list, which also gives them sort of bonuses based on which clan, Bad Moon or Evil Sun, something like that. For basically that just allows you to add a few bonuses, kind of very similar to sort of things like the Marks of Chaos, where you pay 10, 20, 30 points and you get some extras or you swap things out for it. Always fun with the Orks to try those things out. They're very much a give it a go kind of fleet. The Orks are kind of the fleet is kind of often considered to be one of the weakest in the game. Because of its perceived slow. They have weak rear armor, which is 4+, so they're easily targeted by bombers and things like that. And the randomness of some of their weapons and the close proximity you need to get to with that slowness, it kind of feels like they can be a little bit difficult to use. It certainly is a challenging fleet. It's probably one of the most difficult fleets to get right. But luckily, there are a lot of tools in their arsenal to be able to circumvent a lot of those weaknesses. You're not going to get rid of probably the 4+ armor, but you certainly can give them better weapons, brilliant ordnance across the board, as well as sort of improving their firepower considerably in certain areas. And you can offset a lot of the lack of speed because of their inbuilt auto-passing special rules like all ahead full. And the Ork Clans list also adds a little bit more to that too, and gives the Orks access to things like lances that they otherwise wouldn't get access to. So certainly worth looking at those bonuses. But as I said, in this video I'm just going to talk really about the main kind of 2 books that bring together a pretty solid all-round fleet, I think. And I'm also going to give you a little bit of a fleet that I tried out on my mate BFG Noob, which is very random. It's in no way competitive at all, but potentially a good fun fleet for you to use and a fun project for people to give a go. So I hope you enjoy it. I thoroughly enjoyed playing with it. I'm not sure if BFG Noob enjoyed playing against it, but maybe you'd have to ask him. But here we go with the video, folks. I'll just show you some of the fleet. Okay, so this is kind of a really generic all-round Ork fleet from the 2 books. It adds in a Death Dealer battleship, which gives you a good tanky platform to use as your main flagship. It gives you 2 kill cruisers as your main frontline fighting cruisers. It gives you 2 terror ships, which allows you to get access to more ordnance. And then it adds in some Ravagers, which gives you some heavy guns, and you can utilize them to really get them in close and hit really, really hard with double damage against your enemy. And then it adds in some ram ships, which in this fleet I would typically put at the front, in front of my kill cruisers, leading with those. Terror ships kind of behind them, using the Ravagers to sort of hopefully be ignored to then get into a position to be within 15 centimeters to really hit really hard. Again, I'd probably break these up into 2 squadrons personally, but you can mass them together. And then the Death Dealer can put out various different sort of weapons patterns. It even has a bombardment cannon on its prow, which is kind of nuts. But no one really wants to get hit by the brute ram ships. Them ramming a cruiser can easily, even a battleship can easily cripple it, especially a squadron of it. So leading with them can be a really good option for you. and your terror ships add those ordnance platforms and can protect your vulnerable rear 4+ armor. Now, what you can also do, the beauty of the Ork Fleet is it can be very random. So your weapons batteries, for example, you can put out 6 plus D6 on certain things, and some of their torpedoes are like 2 torpedoes plus D6 and things like that. So you suddenly can go from having a very small wave of torpedoes or ordnance or weapons batteries to having, a weapons battery 12 at one side, or a whole wave of torpedoes at like 9 torpedoes hitting. So it can be hilarious and good fun. Very difficult to plan for that, obviously. But it is good fun, and I've always found it. I always just track with these things with different coloured dice to make sure I know what's going on, because it can take a lot longer to work out what's going on with all of those. What you can also do with this fleet, for really no extra kind of points cost really, is start swapping out some of the heavy guns on these platforms for more ordnance. So depending upon who you're potentially playing, if it's Tau, for instance, or Chaos, or even to a lesser degree Eldar, I probably would be swapping out their heavy guns, which are only 15 centimeter range, for those more either boarding torpedoes or fighter bombers themselves, to give you that better ordnance spread. So this is about 1500, about 1480, something like that. If you're kind of more inclined in playing with cruisers and their larger platforms, they do have more hit points than their their Imperial or Chaos equivalents. I'd probably take out maybe a couple of the escorts, or even remove all the escorts completely, and then potentially put in maybe more terror ships and kill cruisers, because having 6 to 7 Ork cruisers coming at you is actually a terrifying prospect for any fleet. Even Eldar and Necrons are going to be a little bit worried by the sheer volume of ships coming at them. Or you can even take all the escorts out and put in another battleship. That kind of, I would say the Death Dealer is probably the best ship, but maybe the Slam Blaster, which is always a fun one, because that provides you with some prow lances at 45 centimeters, which is always a good option for Orks. They don't get too much access to those lances, like I said, unless you start playing around with the Klans list to give you some more, firepower in that regard. So yeah, certainly can add those sorts of things in. So escorts are typically a good option. They're good little. You'll be leading often with the Ork escorts rather than your cruisers, and let them take a lot of the brunt of it, which is opposite to what you'd expect with Imperials, because these would be your main sort of weapons platforms. One other major thing with this is that this fleet would have multiple warlords in it as well. So in this one, I've got 3 warlords here with 3 rerolls, which gives you a good, because the leadership on Orks isn't particularly great, having 3 rerolls is a really, really useful tool to have. Plus the warlords as well. It just allows you to get in and keep in the fight and keep those ordnance platforms running, maybe locking on, that sort of thing as well. But with the 3 warlords, one being on your battleship, and I would suggest putting them both on your kill cruisers, the other 2, that doubles your boarding value. So you're putting out your ordnance, you're hitting them hard with potentially heavy guns. They're frightened by potentially being rammed by the battleship, by the brute ram ships. But all the while, you're thinking about boarding with your 3 main ships here. And if something's boarded with a double boarding value by the Death Dealer, that ship is pretty much toast. So you typically, probably, unless you roll incredibly horrifically, are not going to lose a boarding action when you have that. So pretty generic, pretty all-rounder fleet, I think. I think it would do a pretty good job against pretty much any fleet in any scenario. I'd also consider, if you don't potentially have a battleship or anything like that, or maybe you're going for them, consider the Ork Hammer class battle cruisers as well. These are 2 that I've made up for myself, for my Ork fleets. But they can really provide some fun stuff, because they can actually, the Hammer class can actually, for 245 points, can actually add a bombardment cannon in there, as well as having some pretty decent firepower on both port and starboard side. And they also have launch bays on their dorsal spines as well. So it's an all-rounder, and if you're looking for a ship to potentially replace that sort of battleship sort of version, a battle cruiser, I think, is a pretty valid option in the Ork Fleet list as well. And one of the wondrous things about the Ork Fleet is they can include a Space Hulk, and this is mine completely built, that I built 20 odd years ago, I think, and I've never had the heart to kind of break it apart or build a new one, or anything like that. I've in all its silliness and glory and orkiness, I've kept it for all those years. And they can include things like Ork rocks, which are basically hollowed out asteroids that the Orks just stick engines to, basically. Now, in the original fleet lists for Orks, they could include a Space Hulk for a fleet that exceeded 1,500 points. So you had to get a 1,500 point fleet list before you could even then think of including a Space Hulk in it. However, the Ork Clans list allows you to include an Ork Hulk and just play with it as its standard fleet, as long as you put a Warlord on it. And then you can include as many Ork rocks as you possibly want. Now, the beauty of this is it's quite a fun ship, for want of a better word, to use. It's got like 40 hit points and various things on it, various guns, and it can shoot torpedoes all around, and it has guns even that can shoot behind, which is very rare in this game. But both it and the Ork rocks move basically randomly. And they move in random directions, or can do, and they keep on going on their various trajectories. So this in no way is a competitive fleet. So this probably adds up with the Warlords to be about 1,300 points, give or take. You could probably put things like looted torpedoes, boarding torpedoes. You could add in the various different bonuses you get in the Ork Clans list, depending on which clan you choose to play with, to get it up to 1,500 points. But I have played with this actual list, and I think I added maybe a cruiser or a terror cruiser into this against my friend BFG Noob, who's also a kind of a crazy BFG nut like me. And it was very good fun. Incredibly random, hilarious fleet engagement. I genuinely didn't know what anything was going to do here. So if the beauty of this kind of setup, though, is that these are just polystyrene balls. This is made out of just a lump of polystyrene with dirt and loads of gubbins stuck to stuff. And suddenly you have an Ork fleet that you can play with. You don't necessarily have to have the original metal minis. And so, yeah, you can just crack into it with some polystyrene balls. So that's the wondrous thing about Orks, right? Just throw it all together and away you go. So, but I did want to just mention how fun this fleet is to play. It's typical Ork craziness for anything in 40k, and you really do kind of feel like a bit of an Ork warlord stroke pirate when you got this out on the field. So there you go, Admirals. A really kind of straightforward take all comers fleet list for Orks. You can swap a few things out, like throwing out the escorts and bringing in some more cruisers, or even an extra battleship. Don't sleep on the Ork Hulk. It has a special place. It's ridiculous. It looks so awful. But you know what? I've just got a special place in my heart that I built it so long ago, and it's still stayed with me all this time. Definitely have a look at the Ork Clans list. I think it really does add the extra flavour and can really supercharge your fleet for Orks. Certainly worth checking them out with the various different upgrades and things like that you get with extra lances or improving their movement and things like that. Definitely worth checking out. I would also suggest having a look at when you may want to swap out those heavy guns, which are incredibly useful if you can get close enough at 15 centimeter range, but I've often found swapping out them for torpedo bombers and ordnance has dramatically increased my win rates with it. But good luck, animals. I hope that list does you proud. Good luck, Orks.